Welcome, brothers, to a space where we don't just talk about women, we talk about wisdom. Too many men today walk blind into relationships, ignoring what the Stoics would have called premonitory signs, omens, signals, truths whispered beneath the surface. Let's not waste time. There are words, simple words that a woman might say, but they echo far louder than they seem. Words that reveal not just her mindset, but her deeper worldview, how she sees you as a man, whether you're a partner in her eyes or just a pawn to play. Seneca taught us that a man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary. But what about the man who suffers because he ignored the warning signs? This video exists so you don't become that man. You see, some men hear a troubling phrase and think, "I'll fix her," or worse, "I'll prove myself." But the moment you feel that urge, you've already stepped onto a path the Stoics warned us against, the path of ego, not reason, of validation, not virtue. Today I'll share 5 things a woman may say casually, almost carelessly, that should make you pause, reflect, and walk away. Not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. Because this isn't about anger or resentment. It's about sovereignty, knowing your worth, guarding your peace, and protecting the discipline you've worked so hard to cultivate. Too many brothers have lost themselves trying to be enough for a woman who never intended to meet them halfway. They've traded their purpose for approval and their strength for silence. But that stops today. If you're tired of burning your energy on people who don't value you, if you're ready to move from reaction to reason, from chasing approval to commanding respect, then stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal won't just save you time, it might just save your future. Let's begin. Part 1. My ex was toxic, when the past becomes a weapon to escape the present. When a woman says, "My ex was toxic," your first instinct might be compassion. You may feel the urge to step in as the good man, to save her, to prove you're not like him. But stop, step back, breathe. Because the Stoic understands, not every cry of pain is a call for healing. Sometimes it's a shield, a smokescreen, a deflection from accountability. Of course, toxic relationships exist. Some men are harmful, some women are victims. But a woman who always paints herself as the innocent, the flawless, the eternal victim, without once acknowledging her own choices, her own role in the collapse of that relationship, is not showing you her past. She's showing you her pattern. Ask yourself this: if every man she's dated was a narcissist, an abuser, a manipulator, is that really coincidence, or is it curation? Either she has poor judgment in men, a sign she hasn't done the work to grow, or worse, she's rewriting history, crafting a narrative that ensures she never has to face the mirror. Now let me walk you through the trap. A man dates a woman who constantly speaks of her toxic ex. He feels for her, reassures her, tries to be different. But as time passes, patterns emerge. Every disagreement, no matter how small, becomes a battle. He points out something disrespectful. She snaps, "You sound just like him." He sets a boundary. She accuses, "My ex was controlling too." And now he's trapped, walking on eggshells, terrified of being cast as the next villain in her story. This is how the game works. If she never admits fault in the past, she'll never take responsibility in the present. You will always be the next toxic man when things go wrong. Because in her eyes, she never is wrong. The Stoics taught us the obstacle is the way. But in this case, the real obstacle is her refusal to grow. A high-value woman, the kind you can build with, will say, "It didn't work with my ex. I've learned. I've changed." She will own her past. She won't carry her wounds like trophies. She won't weaponize them to avoid accountability. But a woman who only blames, only shames, only reframes every breakup as someone else's fault, she's not healing, she's hiding. And brother, she's looking for a new stage, not a new start. She's waiting to write you into her next chapter as the villain. So, don't be the next chapter in someone else's blame script. Don't try to save someone who refuses to self-reflect. Don't let your empathy become your downfall. When a woman speaks of her ex, listen not just to the story, but to how she tells it. Does she show wisdom or wound, growth or grievance, accountability or accusation? Because the answer to those questions tells you all you need to know. And if she's stuck in a cycle of blame, denial, and self-righteousness, then do the most powerful thing a Stoic man can do. Walk away with grace, with clarity, with peace. Part 2. I don't need a man. An arrogant statement, containing contempt. The moment a woman says, I don't need a man, don't just hear her words, feel the philosophy behind them. Because what she's revealing isn't just independence, it's ideology. It's not a casual comment, it's a world view, one where men are not partners but placeholders, one where masculine energy is seen as dispensable, not essential. Now, let's be clear, Stoicism doesn't deny the power of independence. In fact, Marcus Aurelius reminds us, a man must stand erect, not be kept erect by others. And that applies to women too. A woman who stands strong on her own feet is admirable. But there's a chasm, a deep one, between self-reliance and ideological dismissal, between being capable and being combative. The woman who feels the constant need to announce that she doesn't need a man is not asserting strength. She's building a fortress, one often forged from past pain, cultural conditioning, or ego. Perhaps she was wounded by someone before. Perhaps she's been told by the world that depending on a man is weakness. Or perhaps she simply seeks control, not companionship. But here's what you, as a man of reason and self-respect, must understand. A woman who truly values men doesn't need to discredit them. She doesn't have to say she needs you. She shows she values you through her actions, her openness, her willingness to walk with you, not ahead of or against you. Let's go deeper. Imagine this man, he meets her, she says that infamous line, I don't need a man to be happy. He shrugs it off. But over time, he begins to notice something insidious. She doesn't value his input. She pushes back on his leadership, not out of difference in vision, but to make a point. She rejects his efforts, not because they fall short, but because she wants to prove she doesn't rely on him. Every time he steps up as a man, she subtly reminds him, you're not necessary. And what happens? He's no longer in a relationship, he's in a competition. He's auditioning for a role that's already been dismissed in her mind. This, my friend, is a losing game. Because a woman who sees men as unnecessary will never truly receive what a good man brings to the table. She may sit at the table, but she'll never taste the meal. She'll always have one foot out the door, convinced she can do better alone. But you must remember, a man of substance does not beg to be needed. He walks in strength. He walks in purpose. And when he sees that his presence is not valued, he walks away. Not with bitterness, not with anger, but with dignity. Because a woman who sees your presence as a burden will never treat your love as a blessing. So the next time you hear those words, I don't need a man, pause. Don't argue. Don't defend. Just nod and walk. Because, as the Stoics teach us, who respects himself fears no rejection. Part 3. You're insecure for thinking that, when words become sophisticated tools of manipulation, there's a tactic, a subtle, sharp-edged weapon, hidden in seemingly innocent words. And when a woman says, you're insecure for thinking that, understand this is not feedback. This is manipulation. It's not a discussion. It's a shutdown, a way to make you doubt your own standards, your own sense, your own voice. Let's say you bring up a concern. Maybe it's a boundary. Maybe it's something that doesn't sit right with you. You speak calmly, clearly, and instead of hearing you, she hits back with, "You're just insecure." What just happened? She didn't address the issue. She dodged it and turned the mirror back on you, but not for reflection, for shame. The Stoics taught us, if someone does wrong, the harm is to themselves, but if you react without discipline, the harm is yours. This is where your discipline must rise, because here's what you must understand, brother. Having boundaries is not insecurity. Speaking truth is not overreacting. Wanting respect is not weakness. It is self-awareness. It is masculine integrity. It is stoic strength. But when a woman wants to avoid accountability, she'll flip the script. She'll say you are the problem. She'll redefine your standards as fragility. And many men, good men, fall for it. They start apologizing for having standards. They question themselves. Maybe I am being too sensitive. Maybe I shouldn't have brought that up. And just like that, they go silent. Their voice gone, their authority eroded. And she knows it, because now she controls the frame. And here's the tragedy. Once a man accepts this game, he starts walking on eggshells. He suppresses his instincts. He tolerates more and more, all to avoid being labeled insecure. But ask yourself, would a woman who respects you ever silence you this way? Would she dismiss your concerns with a cheap label? Would she shame your voice just to protect her comfort? The answer is no. A high-value woman, a woman worthy of building with. She listens, she engages. She's willing to reflect, not deflect. But a woman who constantly pulls the "you're insecure" card, she's not looking for partnership. She's looking for power without accountability. And the man who stays in that dynamic slowly erodes his own confidence until he no longer recognizes himself. So here's the rule. If she uses this phrase to dodge responsibility, don't argue, don't plead, don't explain why you're not insecure. Just pause and walk away, because the moment you start defending your right to have standards, you've already given them away. Stand tall. Trust your instincts. Guard your peace. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know the truth. And if you know your truth, then no one, especially not someone who uses shame as a shield, can take that from you. Part 4. I want a man who can handle me when chaos is disguised as a challenge. I want a man who can handle me. On the surface it sounds playful, maybe even a little flirtatious. But don't be deceived by the tone, because this phrase is not a challenge. It is a confession. What she's really saying is, I plan to bring chaos and I expect you to accept it. She's not testing your strength, she's measuring your threshold for dysfunction. The Stoics understood this dynamic well. Epictetus taught, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. And there is no greater threat to your freedom than someone who thrives on drama and calls it strength. Let's break it down. A high-value man doesn't seek to handle a woman. He seeks to build with her, to lead, to co-create a life of stability, peace, and purpose. But when a woman tells you she wants a man who can handle her, she is already disqualifying herself from that vision. Why? Because she sees conflict not as something to resolve, but something to weaponize. She wants to see how much you'll endure. She'll push, she'll test, and the more you put up with it, the less she'll respect you. Here's the Stoic irony. The more man enough you try to be, by tolerating her behavior, the more she sees you as weak. Let's flip the script for a second. Imagine if a man told a woman, I need a woman who can handle me. What would that sound like? Exactly, it would sound like a walking red flag. Immaturity, chaos, lack of accountability. No woman of value would entertain that, and neither should you. A woman who respects men does not want to be handled. She wants to be understood. She wants to grow with you, not spar against you. She brings peace, not power struggles, trust, not tests. But when a woman makes you prove your worth by tolerating her volatility, She doesn't want a partner. She wants a punching bag with a smile. She wants emotional labor, not emotional connection. And that is not love. That is ego in disguise. You deserve more. You deserve a woman who knows her emotions are her responsibility, who doesn't set fires just to see if you'll stay and burn, who doesn't call instability a personality trait. So the next time a woman looks you in the eye and says, "I want a man who can handle me," don't take the bait. Don't try to prove anything. Simply smile and walk away, not because you're afraid of her fire, but because your peace is sacred, and you know better than to throw it into the flames. Part 5. If you don't do this, I'll find someone who will, when a relationship becomes a bargain and love turns into a threat. She doesn't yell. She doesn't argue. She just says it coldly. If you don't do this, I'll find someone who will. And just like that, the mask slips. You are no longer her partner. You are a transaction, a placeholder, a means to an end. This phrase isn't a request. It's an ultimatum, a line in the sand drawn not from love but from entitlement. And here's where so many men fall. They panic. They submit. They bend thinking, if I don't do this, I'll lose her. But let me ask you, why would you fight to keep someone who sees you as disposable? The Stoics warned us about this exact thing. Epictetus said, "We should not moor a ship with one anchor, or our life with one hope." When you cling to one person as your only source of love, validation, or worth, you become easy to manipulate. A woman who says this isn't expressing her needs. She's issuing a threat, a silent challenge to your self-respect. And if you cave in, if you comply just to keep the peace, you lose far more than your dignity. You lose control of the relationship. Because today it's a small demand, tomorrow it's something bigger, and eventually you wake up one day and realize you're no longer leading, you're no longer respected. You're just reacting, complying, shrinking, and that, my brother, is not love. That is quiet submission dressed in the costume of romance. Let's break this down clearly. A woman who truly respects you will never use ultimatums. She won't pit your love against a threat. She won't test you with the implication of replacement. She will express. She will communicate. She will invite you into dialogue, not demand obedience. But the woman who says, "If you don't do this, I'll find someone who will," has already revealed her game. She is not loyal to you. She is loyal to the benefits you provide. And if she's quick to replace you, she never valued you in the first place. A Stoic man understands. Ultimatums are not love, they are leverage. And a man of virtue does not negotiate with threats. So what do you do when you hear this line? You don't yell. You don't beg. You don't argue. You look her in the eye. You nod once. And you say, "Go ahead." Because a man who is willing to walk away, calmly, silently, without drama, is a man who cannot be controlled. Let her go. Let the game players find each other. Let the transactional lovers chase one another in circles. You stay true to yourself, to your principles, to your peace, because that's the ultimate power move. Not in dominance, not in revenge, but in unwavering self-respect. Part 6. Other men want me. When attention is used as a weapon, not a signal of value. She looks at you and says it casually, like she's just making conversation. Other men want me. But let me ask you something, brother. Why would she say that to you? This is not a compliment. This is a test. A calculated move to measure your emotional control and to see if she can make you dance. The Stoics taught us, who angers you conquers you. But in this case, it's not anger she's after. It's insecurity, jealousy, competition. She's watching to see, will you react? Will you chase harder now? Will you start proving you're better than them? Let's get this straight. A woman who respects you, a woman who values loyalty and trust, she doesn't need to remind you that she has options. She shows you through presence, commitment, and grace. that she has already chosen you. But when she throws this line in your face, there are only two reasons. One, she's seeking validation. She needs attention, not just yours, but everyone's. She feeds off admiration, affirmation, desirability, and she uses other men to inflate her worth in your eyes. But here's the truth. A woman who constantly needs to be desired will never be satisfied with just one man. Because what she craves isn't connection, it's applause. 2. She's testing control. She wants to see if she can shake your core, if she can make you feel small, if she can trigger you into chasing. And when you take the bait, when you say, "Oh yeah, who's hitting on you?" or worse, "I bet I'm better than them," she wins. She now knows your attention is hers to command. But a high-value man, a Stoic man, he doesn't play that game. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't compete. If she says other men want me, he might smirk and say, "Good for them," or calmly reply, "Let's see if they can keep up." Why? Because he knows his worth. He knows what he brings to the table. He doesn't beg, he chooses. Now picture this. You're out with her, the energy is good, conversation flows, and then suddenly she says, "I get hit on all the time." This is the turning point. A low-value man takes the bait. He asks questions, he competes, he tries harder. And she, now knowing she owns his emotions, tightens the leash. But a man of discipline, he keeps his center. He doesn't react. Because he knows, if a woman needs to play games to feel powerful, she is not grounded in feminine strength. She is drifting in emotional chaos. And if she values attention more than connection, if she seeks male approval more than your presence, she's already signaling one thing loud and clear. You are not a priority. You are an option. And a Stoic man does not tolerate being treated as a placeholder. He does not audition for affection. He walks away from games. Let the other men chase her. Let them compete. Let them play in the sandbox of superficial validation. You walk with power, with calm, with purpose. Because the man who can't be shaken, the man who doesn't need to win her, is the man she remembers long after the others fade. Part 7. Real men do this. When male standards are manipulated to serve personal interests. She looks at you, firm in her tone, and says, "Real men do this." Now pause right here. This isn't about masculinity. It's about manipulation. You're not in a conversation anymore. You're in a courtroom where she's both the judge and the one who wrote the law. And the law? It's whatever she needs you to do right now. But here's the Stoic truth. No woman defines what a real man is. Virtue does. Reason does. Discipline does. When a woman uses the phrase real men, she isn't appealing to honor, she's triggering guilt. She wants you to feel like you're not enough until you surrender your boundaries. Let's look deeper. What kind of man falls for this trap? A man conditioned to seek approval. A man who's been taught that being good means being obedient. A man who thinks if he sacrifices enough, she'll finally respect him. But she won't, because respect is never given to the man who compromises himself to earn it. Let's be honest. Have you ever heard this phrase used in a way that uplifts men? Real men focus on purpose. Real men guard their inner peace. Real men protect their time and energy. Almost never. No, what you hear instead is, real men pay for everything. Real men tolerate strong women. Real men never question their partner. Translation, real men do whatever I say. That's not empowerment. That's exploitation. And here's where too many men fall. They overcompensate. They jump through hoops. They lose themselves trying to prove they're real men. But a Stoic man, he doesn't perform. He embodies. He doesn't need external validation to stand in his masculinity, because his identity is rooted not in approval, but in principle. So when she says real men do this, you don't argue. You don't justify. You don't try to convince her otherwise. You simply stand, unmoved, Because the moment you start defending your manhood to someone who questions it, you've already lost the power that defines it. Let's be clear. A woman who truly respects men won't shame them into action. She won't weaponize gender roles to gain control. She won't test your masculinity like it's something to be proved. She'll recognize it, honor it, and meet you there. But if she has to remind you to be a man, it means she doesn't see you as one. And no amount of sacrifice will change that. So when you hear the phrase, "If you were a real man, you'd," remember this: that sentence was never about you. It was about her agenda. And the moment you stop living on her terms is the moment you reclaim your strength. A real man doesn't react to guilt. He responds to truth. He doesn't bend to emotional politics. He stands in silence if needed, because silence is power. Walk away, brother, not to escape, but to elevate. So let's be crystal clear, brothers. This isn't a video about women. It's about you, your standards, your voice, your power. Because every time you ignore a red flag, every time you stay when you should walk, you are not being patient. You are abandoning yourself. The Stoics didn't teach us to suppress emotion. They taught us to master it, to see clearly, to act with reason, not reaction, and most of all, to protect what is sacred: your time, your energy, and your dignity. If she uses guilt to control you, if she calls you insecure when you speak truth, if she makes you prove yourself while treating you like an option, then understand. You are not in a relationship. You are in a battle for your identity, and the only way to win is to stop playing. A man of value doesn't argue for respect. He doesn't explain his worth. He doesn't beg for space in a woman's life. He stands firm. He walks when needed, and he never lets manipulation pass as love. So let this be your line in the sand. The day you stopped chasing approval, the day you chose principle over pressure, the day you chose yourself. Drop a comment below if this spoke to you. I want to hear your story, your lessons, your turning points. And if you're ready to go deeper, to master your mindset, your masculinity, and your mission, join my private community. Links in the description. Until next time, stay grounded, stay clear, and never apologize for walking away when your peace is at stake. This is Man of Substance, and you're just getting started.